President Barack Obama delivers his last State of the Union address. How a Kenyan company is helping keep elections transparent. And conspiracy theorists start your engines. Fox reveals the opening scene of the new X-Files series. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent Makori. This is Africa 54. As seeking to establish his legacy, U.S. President Barack Obama delivered his seventh and final State of the Union address Tuesday night, telling both houses of Congress to look ahead, not just of the next year, but 5 years and beyond. VOA's Caroline Presutti has our report.
In his final State of the Union, the man who promised hope spoke of the nation as clear-eyed, big-hearted, and optimistic, yet now unnerved by terrorism.
When you come after Americans, we go after you.
Despite attacks in Paris and California, Obama said foreign and homegrown terrorists are deadly, but do not threaten the nation's existence. Yet he urged the Republican Congress to act.
If this Congress is serious about winning this war and wants to send a message to our troops and the world, authorize the use of military force against ISIL. Take a vote.
The president also asked Congress to take the next step on Cuba and lift the trade embargo. And in the Pacific, he asked for approval of the Trans-Pacific Partnership trade deal. Shortly before the speech, 10 American sailors on 2 patrol boats like these were detained by Iran. The president did not mention the incident, even as he touted the Iran nuclear agreement before skeptics in Congress.
As we speak, Iran has rolled back its nuclear program, shipped out its uranium stockpile, and the world has avoided another war.
South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley gave the Republican Party response, envisioning a White House under different management.
We would make international agreements that were celebrated in Israel and protested in Iran, not the other way around.
On the president's requests, Republican pollster Matt Gammon.
I don't think he expects serious action on any of those items coming out of this Congress in particular, but I think he wants it to be seen, I think he wants to be seen that he cares about these things to the people who will be writing his legacy in the future.
The president said he regrets the nation's continuing political divide and criticized negative comments by Republicans.
All the talk of America's economic decline is political hot air.
Meanwhile, on Twitter, Republican presidential candidates responded. Donald Trump calling the Obama speech lethargic. Ted Cruz dubbing it a state of denial, not a State of the Union.
The message the White House wanted to deliver was for Americans to look past Republican rhetoric and to focus more on the issues that would affect future generations. Americans vote on a new president in 10 months. In Washington, Caroline Presutti, VOA News.
Well, the political world, from presidential candidates to members of Congress, reacted to President Obama's final State of the Union speech. And VOA's Catherine Gibson tells us more about that.
It was a night of contrasts as Democrats and Republicans reflected on Barack Obama's legacy as president. The president urged America to look to the future in a time of change. Democrats praised his attempt to sum up the past 7 years.
The whole speech was a bit wistful. I think he was looking at his experience of the past 7 years and giving advice as he sees it. And I think it was heartfelt, and I would venture to guess that of all the speeches that he's given for the State of the Union, this one was the one he probably wrote himself.
I thought the president was strong about America's role internationally, that we are the strongest power in the world, and that has responsibilities, and that we need to be engaged and we need to show leadership. I thought he was very strong in the principles that we stand up for.
Republicans criticized what they said was a lack of detail.
I wish he had addressed that he didn't. I wish I'd have heard more about how do you balance the budget. I wish I'd have heard how you defeat ISIL and how do you get the economy growing faster.
He fell way short. He talks a good game, but why not implement what he talked about tonight?
But the 2016 presidential election was on everyone's mind, even Obama's.
I'm going to try to make it a little shorter. I know some of you are antsy to get back to Iowa.
And Republican candidates reacted, even before the speech.
The State of the Union will not be a call to action tonight. It'll be a fantasy wish list by a president who's failed us.
Taking to Twitter immediately after the speech, Jeb Bush said that with his economic approach and strategy to defeat ISIS, the president lives in a different world. President Obama's legacy was the focus this night and certain to be debated on the campaign trail in the months ahead. Catherine Gibson, VOA News, Washington.
Hey, this is not your stage.
Well, for more analysis on the president's address, I'm joined by VOA national correspondent Jim Malone. Jim, welcome to Africa 54.
Thanks, Vincent.
Now, first, how significant is the president's very last State of the Union in crafting his legacy?
I was struck by the fact that we have a president who's been in office for 7 years. He clearly seems to be reflecting on the end of his tenure now. This is going to be a year-long farewell tour. And I think what we saw in the State of the Union was basically a preview of his farewell address. That'll come about a year from now, just as he leaves office. I think he wants to set the tone of achievement, accomplishment, and the need to build on those achievements. Probably for a Democratic president, he'd like that to be the case. And I think he's also kept in mind the fact that it's been a very negative tone and rhetoric from the Republican presidential candidates. That seemed to be on his mind.
And being, typical campaign period, there's an election year.
Right.
Were you expecting any different reaction, especially from the Republicans?
No, I mean, the Republicans have hammered away at two key things. They say the economy is weak and that he's been a weak president abroad and in protecting the country. And we heard the president in his State of the Union give a completely different view as to what his record has been. They continue to hammer away at the Obama record and the legacy. I think the president felt it was time to chime in and say, wait a minute, let me offer an alternative narrative here about what really is going on and try to get people looking optimistically. The other aspect about the political divide, he spent a long time on that. That's a tough nut to crack, especially in a U.S. election year.
At this late hour, from your experience, does a speech like that really change people's minds, influence people's perspective in any way?
I think the key thing for Democrats, it probably was an encouragement, and a lot of them probably liked it. If you're a Republican, you probably are going to dismiss it as somewhat irrelevant. And as the campaign goes on, it'll be more about who succeeds Mr. Obama. And they will be running on his record, and there'll be a lot of criticism of it. But then you have Hillary Clinton hoping to keep his followers, or whoever the Democrat is, as they move to the White House or try to make a move in 2016.
Who kind of shares part of that legacy because we're in the system. Now, many of our viewers in Africa were listening keenly to hear what he would say about Africa or his policies.
Right.
Yeah.
Not a lot. And he's the favorite son of Africa. We know that.
Yeah.
So he's got that legacy making history that way. But look, even the previous president, George W. Bush, had a fairly strong record in terms of involvement in Africa. So there's some reasons to compare and contrast there. But I think Obama probably will be cherished, and you would know this better than I, in Africa, as a favorite son who achieved great heights. Nothing will change that.
Now, just a little bit, if we may conclude on the side of the impact and effect it may have on the campaign.
Yes.
Have you seen that strong embracing of his legacy's achievement by the Democratic side? Or is there anybody who's trying to say, well, I'm my own person, I don't really want to be associated with
Democrats are generally supportive. They need those Obama followers to come out in November that elected him twice. They need that core Democratic base that includes a lot of minority voters, women voters, young people. They can't jeopardize that. Here's the challenge. Americans generally, after 2 terms of one president, are looking for change. And if you're Hillary Clinton, Bernie Sanders, even Martin O'Malley, you have to offer some form of change and yet not distance yourself too much from the Obama legacy.
Do a little more than that.
It's a political tightrope act.
Well, Jim, thank you very much.
All right,
as
Vincent,
always.
thank you.
Yeah, we do appreciate your perspectives. Our thanks to Jim, our national correspondent, Voice of America. Now, residents in northern Cameroon are shaken following a suicide bombing attack that killed 12 people. Officials say the attack on a mosque Wednesday also wounded at least 1 person. This latest bombing happened in an area beset by violence linked to the Nigerian terrorist group Boko Haram. Cameroonian troops are part of an 8,700-troop-strong regional force created to defeat Boko Haram. The militant group has stepped up attacks outside Nigeria over the past year, posing a serious threat to regional security. The United States is sending military supplies and troops to the Central African country to aid in the fight. So far, no group has officially claimed responsibility for that attack. Elsewhere in Central Africa, opposition parties in the Democratic Republic of Congo say they will stage rallies to put pressure on President Joseph Kabila to step down when his term expires at the end of the year. President Kabila is calling for dialogue, a move the opposition says is just a delay tactic. In Kinshasa, banners are urging people to go back dialogue for the good of Congo. But to many, the timing of Mr. Kabila's call for political talks less than a year before his term expires is seen as highly suspicious. Kabila has refused to promise to leave power at elections set for November. With little public support for altering the constitution to allow Kabila to run again, his opponents believe he has opted instead for a sliding of the electoral calendar to prolong his days in power.
The best way to respect your people, to respect the will of the population, is to respect the Constitution. The president's term ends in 2016, and the dialogue cannot bring other convictions that are contrary to the spirit of the Constitution. So if you want dialogue, that is not a problem. But after 2016...
Well, Joseph Kabila became president in 2001 after his father, Laurent Kabila, was assassinated. He later won elections in 2006 and 2011. Well, we want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we covered. Join the conversation on Facebook. And the address is Africa 54. And check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Find me on Twitter at VOA Vince Makori. Well, coming up, a Kenyan company crowdsources election transparency. Stay with us.
Health news and notes. This is Living Better.
A London-based company is using an inexpensive, faster way for making orthotics, the braces and supports that help children and people with disabilities. Navid Parvez is co-founder of Andiamo with partner Samia Parvez.
We create 3D printed orthotics, which are custom bracing for the outside of the body. We do that specifically for children. And we use 3D scanning alongside 3D printing.
Traditional orthotics can be cumbersome with an uncomfortable plaster fitting process and a lengthy wait for the brace. For Andiamo's orthotics, a quick scan becomes a highly accurate 3D image that can become any 3D printed device, according to Samia Parvez.
We're talking about back braces, hand splints, leg splints, anything that supports your posture.
An estimated 100 million people worldwide need orthotics devices. I'm Martin Seacrest for VOA's Living Better.
Welcome back. Today we are continuing our Africa Innovation Series with a unique crowdsourcing company that originated during Kenya's 2007 and 2008 post-election violence. It is called Ushahidi. Africa 54's Paul Ndiho recently visited the tech company in Nairobi, and he now joins us to tell us more. Paul?
Indeed, Vincent, Ushahidi is a unique company that is having an impact all over the world, and it may also help African citizens protect their votes. Ushahidi's crisis mapping software was first used in early 2008 to track down violent outbreaks related to the disputed Kenyan election of 2007. And it's been used since to coordinate everything from disaster relief, following earthquakes, elections in Nigeria to snow cleanup in New York City.
Now, 6-7 years later, Ushahidi, there are over 90,000 deployments around the world. It's used in over 150 different countries, being translated into over 50 different languages. We talk about 6.5 million people with direct impact, and indirect impact over 70 million people. So we truly are a global technology company, but made in Africa.
Citizens may use any mobile device to send information to a volunteer technical team responsible for mapping data. Ushahidi offers products that enable local observers to submit reports using their mobile phones or the internet, while simultaneously creating a temporal or geospectral archive of events.
Biggest use cases, about 73%, 75% of the deployments are in the areas of citizen government engagement. So people doing things like election monitoring. They're in the area of disaster response. So, for example, there was a big Ushahidi deployment that was used to coordinate the response around the Nepal earthquake earlier this year. And then also just the civic space. So we have maps, for example, in Egypt, Harass Map. And what they're doing is monitoring incidences of sexual harassment and sexual violence on the streets of Egypt.
Ushahidi's executive director, Daudi Wari, says the Kenyan technology company continues to do very well in a market that is highly competitive, simply because their technology is having an impact in the world. For example, their software was used to monitor the elections in Nigeria.
And it was interesting that, through this, through maps like this and other civil society initiatives, you're able to see Nigeria go through its first peaceful transition. So when you start involving ordinary citizens in key decisions of their day, they feel invested in the process, they feel committed to the process, and it can help deal with incidences of violence.
Since 2008, the Ushahidi platform has grown to be a world-class open source tool for human rights activism, crisis response, and civilian empowerment.
We've done work for even high-level political campaigns such as the Barack Obama presidential election campaign. So the software itself is pretty secure and pretty strong, and we're very proud of that. So people come here because they're passionate about their communities, they want to have a positive impact, and they want to do meaningful stuff in an innovative space that allows them to move and develop quickly.
Analysts say advances in technology and crowdsourced data only help in dealing with a crisis. Daudi Were says the most important facets remain to have a community, both local and international, to identify and respond to a crisis, and then having the commitment to help those affected.
Well, amazing there. So this is, I think, one of the few things that have been created in Africa, and they're being used different parts of the world. I do hear that even in the United States, it's been used.
Yeah, Ushahidi is a remarkable example of success stories in Africa. This is a crowdsourcing software that has originated in Kenya that has been used all over the world. Most recently, they actually deployed it in Nigeria to monitor the elections. Yeah. What a remarkable thing to come out of.
That's amazing. Now, my question is, do they, those pieces of information go back to Kenya? They're relayed back to Kenya from whatever country that, the information is coming from?
No, what they do, they provide the platform. Yeah. So it depends. Let's say if it's in Nigeria or in Uganda, the local people in Uganda will use the software, okay, and the Nairobi acts as a hub that receives all the information.
Okay. And then they put it in the system. What's their projection? In which other areas will it possibly be used?
Well, they've done very, very well in areas of crisis management, especially, let's say there's an earthquake, there is a tornado, snow cleaning in New York here. They recently used the crowd software. They've used it in other places, especially in elections. They are talking about going to Uganda in the coming elections in February. It's going to be one of the things that they're going to deploy in Uganda.
So very quickly, this is an app that you can download on your smartphone?
It's both an app and you can use it on your phone, on your computer. Yeah, so it's on multimedia platforms.
Okay, great. And very quickly, what are some of the, say, things that you noticed about this program that could be a challenge, potentially, that they could fix?
Obviously, when it comes to security, you talk about people hacking into the system. But from what Daudi Weri told me, the software is designed in such a way that you almost can't hack into the system. So it's very, very secure, to the extent that during the 2011 elections here in the United States, Barack Obama's campaign deployed it too.
It's amazing. Yeah. Thanks a lot, Paul. Excellent reporting there.
Thank you.
And we do look forward to more of your original reports from the continent. Well, staying in Kenya, until recently, blind and visually impaired students in Kenya were still using braille books for their studies. But Kenyan schools for the blind are now beginning to adopt technology that provides material in an audible form and in the process expands their opportunities. Lenny Ruvaga has more.
17-year-old Lucas Mwanzia intently searches the internet for information. Today's class is on biology. Mwanzia is visually impaired and for the last 2 years has been attending computer classes at the Thika School for the Blind. Mwanzia is in 8th grade, having started school at a later age because of his vision. He says the technology has opened new frontiers that were once inaccessible.
Braille books are quite expensive, and you have to use quite a sum to purchase one. But now, since we have computers, we get the books at virtually no cost. So we download the various books to read, and when we are done, we just close the program.
Kuna kompyuta tunaweza pata kitabu tu bure. Saa zingine saa zingine unakuta unapata kitabu kwa kompyuta, saa zingine una download ile kitabu unasoma, after kusoma alafu sasa unafunga hiyo program.
The school embraced assistive technology 6 years ago, enabling blind and visually impaired students to access information from computers and iPads. Zachary Mwasia, one of the school's teachers, was born blind. He has been teaching the students how to use the technology for about 2 years now. He says the technology presents opportunities that can level the playing field for his students.
Assistive technology equips learners with very many skills that really make them independent in life. They can read materials like books, magazines, or newspapers by themselves. And apart from that, it also assists them to acquire the employable skills.
The assistive technology costs $1,000 for a school to install, but an NGO called Enable has provided it to the schools at no cost. Peter Okeo, the program manager at Enable, says blind students using the technology may still face challenges when they move to higher education.
When learners move from primary to high school and then to universities, they go to university and then they realize that there is no that technology. So the fact that they learn technology in primary and high school, when they move to university, they go back to Braille, which is now another challenge to them.
So far, 4 out of Kenya's 11 schools for the blind have adopted the technology. Enable says it will provide the funding for the remaining schools to come on board. Lenny Ruvaga for VOA News, Thika, Kenya.
Well, three-dimensional printers and robots for personal use are rapidly growing sectors of the consumer electronics market. Both were on display at this year's Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas. VOA's George Putich has our report.
Someday soon you may ask yourself, do I need a 3D printer? They're already available and affordable. Like this one, for instance, Mod 3, that goes for only $399. With it you can print cool toys or maybe a ping pong ball shooter like this. You may go into design and create beautiful artistic objects. Or maybe print a part for one of your household robots. One of the things it can do, it can take your picture and put it on its screen. There it goes. Telepresence robots are becoming very popular. So if Voice of America buys one, next year I may not have to come here. George Putich, Voice of America at CES, Las Vegas.
That's cool. Well, it's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54. Do you still want to believe? An American cult show from the 90s is about to have a reboot. We'll be right back.
If you've just joined us, I'm Mariam Diallo, and here is a quick recap of today's headlines. In Tunisia, the country celebrates the 5th anniversary of revolt that overturned the regime of Ben Ali. In Liberia, the country expects the 2-year Ebola epidemic that left dead more than 11,000 people to soon be declared over. In Morocco, almost 4,000 people from Moroccan unions gathered to protest retirement reforms of the Justice and Development Party. Finally, in Ghana, President John Dramani Mahama says that 2 Yemenis transferred from Guantanamo Bay want to leave normally and pose no threat to security. That's all for today. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Welcome back to Africa 54. I'm Esther Gidhu. Here's what's trending. It's never too late to fall in love. 84-year-old media mogul Rupert Murdoch and 59-year-old actress model Jerry Hall are engaged. They announced their engagement in the births, marriages and deaths section of the Times newspaper, which is owned by Murdoch's News Corporation company. It will be the 4th marriage for Murdoch and the 1st for Hall, although she lived with Rolling Stone lead singer Sir Mick Jagger for many years. Hall and Jagger married in a Hindu ceremony in Bali in 1990, but the union was later declared invalid by a British court. Next up, do you still want to believe? The X-Files returns to the television in 2 weeks, and on Tuesday, Fox released the first minute of footage from the series premiere on a newly launched fan website. This short extract is posted on doyoustillbelieve.com, a fan site set up to promote the revival. And after watching the video, fans are invited to indicate if they still believe and can upload a new photo. It is all part of the social media strategy to draw old and new viewers to the franchise that won a cult following around the world with its tales of aliens and the paranormal, as well as dark conspiracies about shadow government forces. And in other promotional news, the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences has launched their publicity campaign for the 2016 Oscars. The campaign is built around the slogan, "We all dream in gold." It features photos of such past Oscar winners as Lupita Nyong'o and Jamie Foxx. The Academy is also running 2 commercials, one featuring host Chris Rock and the other narrated by Oscar winner Morgan Freeman. The 88th Academy Awards will air live on Sunday, February 28th. And that's what's trending today. Vincent.
Well, thanks, Esther. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. For more news, tune in to VOA's evening radio show, Africa News Tonight, at 1800 UTC. And in the mornings to Daybreak Africa between 0300 and 0600 UTC, Monday through Friday. Thanks a lot for watching. From all of us here in Washington, have a good night.
Welcome to English in a Minute. A bicycle has 2 wheels. A car has 4 wheels. But what has 5 wheels?
5th wheel.
Let's listen to Jonathan and Anna talk about being a 5th wheel.
Hey, got any weekend plans?
Well, I'm going out to dinner with 2 couples. You know what that means.
Ouch. You're going to be the 5th wheel.
I know, but luckily the couples are really cool, so I won't feel too left out.
A car does not need a 5th wheel. If someone is a 5th wheel, they may feel like an unimportant part of a group, usually a group of couples. They may feel, as Anna says, left out. And that's English in a Minute.